I just opened this book, and what did I read? The first paragraph. One autumn morning in 2008, she stood in Judge Thompson's courtroom. She wore an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. Thompson was prepared to sentence her. She faced 2 to 20 years. Chelsea asked the judge to send her back to drug court. He did. From that day forward, she was going to do everything right. She was a star pupil in Thompson's drug court the second go round. She graduated from college and then secured a master's degree. Her felony conviction limited her job options. She got hired as a counselor at the treatment clinic in Logan, where they handed out strips of buprenorphine to wean addicts off heroin and painkillers. Addicts talked to Chelsea. She was one of them. She gave them hope. She was in an orange jumpsuit before the judge. You know, I saw a picture of a woman in an orange jumpsuit who looked a lot like me. The only name they gave her was Celebrity Star. They said she had published something that was a violation of national security in a publication she worked for called The Intercept. They gave her 5 years in jail. 5 years is a time frame where one can obtain what is called a convertible loan. It's also a time frame wherein individuals can take out a sort of corporate security that allows for a conversion. You get a bond, but then after 5 years, you can convert it to stock. That's what they're doing with Celebrity Star right now. I have a feeling that part of the reason they're doing that with Celebrity Star is because Celebrity Star, like a lot of other people, just said no to drugs. There were other things that were more interesting. Like, I don't know, crime involving public corruption. If you think you're owed, you may be correct. You probably are. You know what I believe you're owed? I believe you're owed 26 attorneys general that agreed to prosecute cases against the opiate production sector and accept civil penalties that they allowed to be meted out through the state first, so the state could hook up hedges for future contract outlays, including with the same companies. And then certain individuals could get a one-time sum of money for whatever the hardship was they had endured, but would also be required to do something with a waiver of liability regarding anything in the future, up to and including being called in for medical treatment, I don't know, say under the auspices of acquiring COVID-19, so that they can have their DNA harvested. And then they can be put in a situation where they're told they have to receive either some kind of medication, or they're put into a process where they're told they have to go get a vaccine. It's part of a public health situation. Let me ask you a question. We're a little over a year down the road since the original state of emergency was declared, at least in the state of Texas, on March 16th of 2020, right? We're over 13 months and 5 days. How many people who would have been part of those class action suits concerning the opiate industry at any point in the last 3 stages, mind you, these recent opiate lawsuits are the 3rd stage in a more than 20-year process of civil litigation targeting the opiate sector. The book I just read from is actually connected to the 1st through the 2nd stage, right? Not the 3rd stage we just dealt with. How many people that would have been recipients of some sort of remuneration as a part of those lawsuits have either contracted COVID-19 or were put in a situation where they went into a hospital or an alleged treatment center because they were exhibiting symptoms and got a test for COVID-19? I'm not talking about the mandated vaccinations yet. I'm not talking about people who would be considered priority. Because chances are, like the woman in the orange jumpsuit in here, they probably had something on their record, which meant that they probably weren't in a job role where they were a priority when it came to the early rollout of the vaccines, right? But how many of them already contracted COVID-19 and or exhibited some sort of symptomatology, so they were compelled to go to the hospital or a local clinic and get a COVID test? Let me ask you, how many of them ended up either donating plasma or getting some sort of plasma donation? See, as soon as we get that information, then we're going to be in a position to actually get what we're owed. You're owed a replacement for at least 26 attorneys general that refused to do the job of an attorney general. In the state of Texas, the attorney general is responsible for bonds associated with making sure that the state functions. But that means they have to be legal, and that means they have to be correct. Right now, the person moonlighting as if he's the attorney general, including after an election that was fraught with fraud, has been trying to figure out how to get the state to pay for the bribe. The FBI is trying to get him to pay them to keep quiet about what was really going on with the relationship between the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the state of Texas for at least the last 5 years. Right? You're owed an attorney general, a real attorney general. You really are. And I know that. I would have every intention of fulfilling that obligation. And that's what I'm trying to do. But let's not make any pretenses here. That one-time payout, based on all of the harm and all of the damage and all of the devastation that had been premeditatedly set up in order to convert Highway 119, right? All of that was supposed to be able to be paid for and wrapped up so that you were not supposed to ask and no one was going to tell you what it was actually an outlay for. Well, I apologize. All of those people that did not ask the right questions and refused to inform you, they're not doing their jobs. They're doing something else. And because we're talking about actual acquisition and distribution of dangerous drugs, question is, what is it that they were actually trying to do, right? So I apologize. Don't be confused. You're absolutely right. You're owed. But what you're owed is something direct, accountable, and literal. Playing around like you're in some sort of public office so that you could create a ceremony of fraud is not going to have a very long-term utility. As many of us that are left, I am encouraging you, if you are in the state of Texas, or honestly in any other state, and you were in any way, shape, or form contacted about or a part of any litigation involving the opiates or companies involved with production of opiates, and you have in any way, shape, or form had to either go in and get a COVID test, been diagnosed with COVID-19, or been in a situation where you got some mysterious medical ailment, including the flu, including having to go and get a test for tuberculosis, including being diagnosed with a respiratory illness up to and including pneumonia. And please make sure that you provide this information to the public. Contact me directly. If you get this video and find out about it, contact Charity Colleen Crouse. I'm going to put my email at the bottom of this video. It's the first step, the first practical step that needs to be taken to address this honestly and forthrightly. They had no right to just launder money through state apparatuses via the offices of attorneys general in order to provide a flip on this long-term hustle. It's a lethal hustle. It's murder. It is not what they're saying it is. And that was what they were supposed to do. That's what you've been defrauded out of. That's what you're owed.